Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. As Shai said, I'm a product manager in CloudGuard. And tonight I'm going to be talking to you about 3 really cool new features that we're coming up with in 2022. Features that are already available in early availability, that are already being used by customers of various sizes, that you can request already today to enable in your CloudGuard account, if that's something you want to do. And will be, as Shai just said, officially launched early November. So you'll keep an eye for our publications around this and announcements. So what we're going to do tonight is a deep dive into those features. First, I'll go over 3 very quick slides to explain the idea behind each of those features, why we're doing this, what we're doing, and then we'll just open the portal and I'll show you what's going on, what are the features, and you can ask questions. So first of all, let's talk about what we call AWP, for Agentless Workload Posture. So as you get from the name, the idea here is to be able to look into workloads, but in agentless way. So instead of having to go through any kind of complex deployment, having to install agents on the virtual machines to be able to get details into what's going on in those machines, we are able to do this on the site through scanning snapshots of the instance volume. So with this solution, we can achieve very deep visibility into many things. So I here only mentioned vulnerabilities, malware, exposed credentials, but there are a lot of things we can do with this great capability. So we'll be expanding the scope of what we provide with AWP. But it is important to understand that now CloudGuard provides, as part of the offering, without having to request any additional licensing, it's really completely included within the CloudGuard suite. You have now the ability to scan your virtual machines, to understand if you have vulnerabilities there, and I'll show you later on how it feeds into the rest of the system. So that's for AWP. So Benny, right after that, will show you how to do the onboarding to the feature and how the results look like in the portal. The second feature that I want to talk about, and on this I'll expand a little bit more, is what we call effective risk management. So the idea here is pretty simple. We've talked with our customers. We talk with customers on a daily basis. We understand that the main pain point today for customers is a pain point for us as well, is time, resources, right? So when a customer is dealing with huge amounts of resources, it means generally a lot of alerts going on in a security tool as well, in our tool as well as other tools in any case. We have all those great features that add value, but in the end, customers do not necessarily know what to start with, what to attend to first. What are the assets that require immediate attention? What are the findings? What are the alerts that need to be fixed right away? So the idea of effective risk management is to help customers manage effectively their risk, manage effectively their time, so that if they have only 5 minutes to spend on CloudGuard and on their security posture, they spend those 5 minutes in the best way possible. So we do that using a lot of context information and machine learning, and we provide asset risk scoring. So you'll see in a few minutes in the portal how this looks. We're able to calculate a risk score for your cloud assets, and this way you can understand what are the assets that are the most at risk. And again, I'll stress it when I do the demo, but this risk is not just a simple result of alerts open on the asset, but really taking into account all the context, maybe network topology, maybe IAM permissions, everything that the CloudGuard portal provides, the CloudGuard platform, sorry, we feed into the risk to be able to give you this accurate indication of the security status of the asset. Part of the ERM is also reducing in general your attack surface, understanding attack vectors, which ways can an attacker potentially get into your cloud environments, so that you really again focus on the right things. And obviously, the last stage of the effective risk management is to provide remediation that is straightforward, that is actionable. And we call this minimal effective dose. Again, you'll see the effective word come back. Our goal is to make your work as effective, as efficient as possible. So when we talk about remediation, this is an obvious requirement as well, giving you those little actions, those 5 top actions you need to do to make sure you have the highest impact in your risk posture and your security risk. And finally, the last feature that we'll be discussing tonight is called Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management. So I didn't come up with the name. It's a term that was invented by Gartner about in 2020. So the idea here is, again, to reduce your attack surface from a specific angle, the angle of IAM permission. So what happens today for all our customers is really all. I don't think there's one customer that can say they don't have this kind of issue, is that most of the time cloud assets are being granted permissions that they do not need. And this is done because, lack of knowledge, lack of time, lack of resources to really dive into what's needed and what's not. So you end up with resources, with assets that have permissions that you do not expect them to have. And if an asset like that is compromised, then suddenly you have an attacker that also has permissions you never intended them to have. And sometimes those permissions are very serious, very sensitive. So CIEM comes into the picture to, first of all, provide you with visibility, understand what are those permissions you're granting, because if you guys are already familiar with, if we take the example of AWS, the different levels, the different types of policies that you can use to grant permissions to an entity, if it is service control policies on the organization, if it is permission boundaries, if it is an inline policy, you have several ways of defining permissions. They all work differently. And, it's not so simple to understand when you look at a cloud asset in the console of the cloud provider to understand what are those permissions that are granted. So this is the first leg of CIEM, providing visibility into all the permissions granted, and even better than that, making sense of all those permissions to provide what we call effective policy. So what are the permissions that are actually granted when you do, the math? Because a policy could grant something that another one denies. So we do this work for you. So cloud assets permissions make sense easily on the CloudGuard platform. And level 2 of CIEM is permission optimization. So now, for those of you that are already familiar with CloudGuard, and for the others, I'll explain quickly, but part of CloudGuard is what we call intelligence. Intelligence is kind of our runtime piece. We're bringing in logs from cloud providers, activity logs and network traffic logs. Network traffic is irrelevant to this session, so I won't comment it, but we're bringing from the cloud provider the logs of everything that's happening within the cloud environment, any API call, any login to the console, any action that's done from the console, from the CLI, whatever. We're bringing all of this in. We're making sense of those logs by enriching them, which means basically adding all the information we have from our inventory piece. And we're able to take those logs to understand what are the permissions that are actually in use. So now we have a cloud asset. We know what are the effective permissions that it has. We know what are the permissions it is actually using through intelligence. We can do the correlation and deduce what are the permissions that are excessive and should be removed. So when this is the case, we again here provide you with actionable remediation policies you can take, copy and paste into your cloud vendor, but other type of remediation as well to ensure you are compliant with what we call least privilege. So again, only granting the smallest set of permissions necessary to perform a task. So with all that said, we're ready to move on to the demo. Shai, I don't know if you've been monitoring questions, if there's something we should answer before moving on to the demo.
No questions.
No? Okay, great. So Benny, you want to take the screen?
Yeah, thank you, Avi.
Sure.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my name is Benny Zamur. I am the team leader of AWP. So in AWP, we are scanning VM machine. Currently, we start.
Benny, we don't see it in the presentation mode. We see the slides like.
Okay.
Now it's good.
Okay. So yeah, so in Agentless, we are scanning the VM machine. We start with AWS EC2 machine, and we are starting working also on Azure. Currently, we are scanning for vulnerabilities, packages with all the package managers, and OS. Currently only in Linux. We have some limitation. We are still under EA, so we are not a GA yet. And so what I want to show you today, so just to understand how what we are giving. So we have in AWP we have an engine to scan all the VMs. The VM is all the scanning is agentless, so we are not affecting the machine itself. We are using snapshots. We will see that, and all we are doing is running on the snapshot, and we can scan and get all the information. We can get, as I said, the vulnerabilities. We can go to get also secrets, and also it's open for all the features that we can develop in the future. Everything that we can think about that is related to the disk itself, we can do that. So just to understand the setup, and currently we have two model of the scanning. So I will focus on the SaaS model. This is what is working now, and you can and we have already customers that is using it. And so the SaaS model says that we are scanning, all the scan is in our side. So if in the left side we can see an account of customer with some VMs, each VM have some volumes with data, and we want to enable this feature. So what you need to do is the first thing is to onboard. In order to onboard, you need to install a CloudFormation template on his account, and it gave permission to our CloudGuard backend in order to do the scan. Once we have this permission, AWP can see and interact with the account and can start scanning. So the scan will start with creating a snapshot of each volume of each machine. And then when we have the volume, we can share it with our backend, and we scan it in a VM that run inside our backend. And the result will be populated to the backend and to the UI, and you can see that. So this is the model that the data is scanned in the customer account, in our account. There is also another model that will be ready at the end of this month, and the model it's for a customer. And this we see a lot of some customers that want to scan everything inside their accounts in the customer account itself. So the difference is that the scanner itself will be run inside the customer account. So what I want to show now it's onboarding. So let's see. So I will show. Let me. Do you see the UI screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the portal. Yeah. Okay. So in the portal, there is the list of the environments that we are already protected. So every customer that have already connected his AWS account, once we are enabling the feature, you get a new column of AWP. So what you need to do is just to click on Enable AWP, and to choose. So as I said, currently we are only in the SaaS mode. In the future, we can be also choose here if you want in account, but currently I focus on a SaaS mode. Then just to press on the create cross account tool. This will link us to CloudFormation console in AWS console, and you get this quick link to create a stack in AWS. So we have the information. If you want to see exactly what you are installing, so you can take this template and see it's public. You can see the resources that we are creating in the account. So it's currently some permission and the lambdas that handle the snapshot, have the permission to do the snapshot, etc. And you just need to approve as a process and to click on create stack. It can take about 2 or 3 minutes in order to install all the resources here. And once it will be ready, you just need to go back to the UI, to the console, and click here on the next button. So I don't want to wait all this time. I will just jump to look like how it will look like as a result of a scan of that. So you can drill down from protected asset, from the risk management, or from a protected asset in asset to look inside, for example, you can filter by EC2 instances to select, and you can see each machine that you want. So for example, this one have a lot of risks, so I can go to the vulnerability tab. And here in the vulnerability tab, this is a result of the scanning of AWP. You can see here it's a list of CVEs that we found, so sorted by packages. So each item here in the left is a package that we found. And for each package, you can see how much fixable CV you can fix if you follow up the remediation. So for example, this package have all of this kind of CVE. You can see a description for each CVE. And you can see here the remediations that you need to upgrade from the current version that is 2.00 to upgrade to version 9.01. And you will fix all of that CVE, etc. You can drill down each package here to see exactly where is the location on the disk, where is it installing, which package manager. So it can be Python, it can be a Node, Java, etc. There is also a tab here of remediation summary. So this is also the remediations that are regrouping together. So you can see for each package what is the current version and what is the version that you need to upgrade. As I said, currently future features that we will develop will be to fill the secret. Currently it's empty and threat also empty. So, but something that is coming soon. The secret is something that will come soon. And this is it. This is how you can see the result. What is important to know is that we are scanning only Linux machine. We are scanning only running machines. So machines that VMs that are that are stopped, not running, we will skip them. We are scanning. So and also there is some limitation on size of the disk. So we are scanning up to 1 terabyte. This is the main limitation. And the scan will be every 24 hours. So each VM we will rescan again each 24 hours, and the result will appear in the UI, and you will get it's sorted by the scores that ERM will show you. Any question?
Shai,
Yeah, so we have a few questions on the Q&A. So only Linux VM are supported, right? So yes, this is what you said, that only Linux. Is there a plan in the future to scan other type of machines, by the way?
Yes, also we are planning to add Windows, of course.
And AWP covers only AWS for now.
Yeah, and we are working on Azure. It should be in quarter one, a first version in quarter one of next year.
And Andre asked also what additional resources are created by the CFT.
Yeah, good question. So currently we are creating. So it depends, by the way, if you are running in the SaaS mode or in the in-account mode. So in the SaaS mode, we are in both. We are creating a cross-account role that give permission to CloudFormation, to CloudGuard to access the account for the needed permission, and also we are creating a Lambda that only this Lambda will have. The code is public. You can see the code, and it's with very strict permission. And this Lambda will create the snapshot, have the permission to create the snapshot and delete the snapshot, etc. So you can see everything that we are doing. We are not doing that by the cross-account role. In the SaaS mode, there is a problem of when encrypted volume. So because we cannot share and we don't want to share the original key that encrypt the volumes. So we are part of the onboarding in the CFT. There is a key that we are creating in order to decrypt and re-encrypt with this key, and only with this key we are sharing the data. And this is for that we are using this key. In the next mode that we will release soon, we don't need that because all the scan will be in the same account. So if you are in the same account, you have permission to the keys that in the account, and we are not creating this key.
Benny, is there an option to start the scanning manually?
Currently, no. It's something that we are thinking about with some limitation. We don't want also to abuse of that. But it's something that we are thinking about. Of course, if there is some change that in the configuration of the number of volumes, etc., or for example, a machine is start or stopped and restart, etc. So for each change of like that, we will rescan it as soon as possible, and will not wait again 24 hours. And also a new machine that is added will be soon as possible in the next hour maximum.
Thank you, Benny. And Abi, this is for you. Can you tell how does it's being licensed?
For now, it's part of the CloudGuard licensing. There's nothing additional.
So for customers that have already CloudGuard, CSPM,
they can request to enable it, and they can start.
And how do they request to enable it? So well, what is the process?
There is no. I mean, if they have a checkpoint, if they work with an SE or with an account manager, then I would go directly to that person. If not, you can reach out to me. You can open even something on the forum in Checkmate. I mean, there are many ways to get in touch. So.
Okay, so you can paste your email at the end or give your email.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Benny, is there a plan or also Abi, is there a plan to support GCP?
I think it's not on the soon development, but yes, there is a request for that.
So there are other questions, but let's start because we need to cover more topic, and let's see at the end if we can answer more questions. And by the way, if we will not be able to answer all of the questions live, we will take them, and Abi, you will be able to answer, and we'll put it on the Checkmate post with the recording. So Abi, let's move forward. Thank you.
So can you see the risk management dashboard?
We see, yes.
Okay, great. So now we're going to take a look at the effective risk management. So in the portal, it's called risk management. There is a new menu item. You can see it's in preview. So same thing as AWP, you can already request to have it enabled. So the very first screen I want to show you is the risk dashboard. So the risk dashboard is the idea is really, again, to focus on the things that are the most critical. So we're presenting information about assets that are in high risk. Our risk score is between 0 to 10. So you have assets that are in risk higher than 7 here. So we can look at all the assets that are in risk, in high risk. We have a focus on public assets. So very often when we speak with customers, the very first asset they want to make sure are healthy or well configured are the assets that are publicly exposed. So this is one of the reasons that we present this here. I'll get back to this in a few minutes. Other examples, assets that have severely exposed credentials, severe CVEs. So anyway, this dashboard is your starting point when working with the risk management. It can be filtered. So you can use the filters that are presented in here. And that's pretty much what, okay. Yeah, of course, I prepared the screens before, so I'm not logged out. Go back in. Okay. Sorry about that. Internet of the house apparently acting out. Okay. Great, and we're back. So again, the risk dashboard is your your starting screen. And as the feature grows, it will be enriched. There will be other options in here, other widgets, customization options, etc., etc. So you can obviously click on any of those widgets to drill down. The second screen I want to show you is what we call protected assets in the risk management. So you can see here a list of all the assets that are supported in effective risk management, ordered by their risk. So we can see riskiest assets on the top. And what I want to explain a bit now is how we calculate our risk score, because I think this is an important piece of information. So if we look in here at the columns, we can see some of the, we can understand a little bit what's going into this risk score. So we have a base for the risk. We start calculating the risk score with two main items: misconfigurations and vulnerabilities. So misconfigurations are a result of our CSPM engine, our compliance engine. Though we're not using any kind of misconfiguration as an input to the risk score, because some misconfigurations are purely compliance related. So what we did is we created rule sets that are completely dedicated to risk management, and that know to identify only those misconfigurations that present a security risk. So very soon, customers will be able to connect their own rule set to the risk score calculation. This is a feedback that we got during our early availability phase, that some customers, even though they understand that we have the knowledge of what are the things that they should be looking at, they don't always have the capability, the bandwidth to handle all those things. They have worked on customizing rule sets to their needs and to their bonds. So so this is one thing that's coming up very soon: this ability to connect your own rule set to the risk score. The second part of the base risk is vulnerabilities. So vulnerabilities, not just CVEs, but also threats and secrets, as Benny explained, as a result of the AWP feature, but not only. We already provide an integration with AWS Inspector v2 as well, so we can get CVEs from AWS Inspector. Threat and secrets is a feature only of our own AWP scanner. So going forward, we'll definitely plan integration with other vulnerability scanners so that we can work with whatever the customer is already using. But this is the current situation. So once we have this base risk, again, misconfigurations and vulnerabilities, we modify it. So we have two main modifiers, one that we call context, and the second that we call impact. So context is basically the probability of an asset being attacked, right? So It's not just, not every asset is exposed in the same way. So typically, the network exposure of an asset, if an asset is public, is partially public, it's private, this is going to influence the risk score of the asset. If the asset is running, this is also a context information. So again, as time goes by, we're going to add to this more and more, but it's important to understand that from the start, the risk score that we're attributing to assets is modified by context information. And the second part, so the impact, is about what happens if that asset is compromised, right? If there is an issue with that asset, what is the impact on my cloud environment? So here as well, we have a lot of plans around things that we can add, but as of today, we're already factoring in what we call the business priority. Business priority is a way for customers to define their important assets. It's not a must, it's an optional feature, but it allows you to tell us, for example, that some assets are part of a dev environment and therefore less important than assets in production. It allows customers to tell us that assets that are part of the payment application are more critical than assets part of the HR system. So this is a great feature because, again, it allows the risk to become much more accurate. And that I'll show you in a few minutes how we can define the business priority. The last thing I wanted to explain is that on side of the impact, another value that is not shown right now, but is going to be part of the risk in a very, very short amount of time, is what we call the IAM sensitivity. So we're going to talk about IAM permission in a little bit when we explain the CIEM feature. But because we're able to analyze those IAM permissions, we're also able to tell when an asset has permissions that are very sensitive or less sensitive. So we calculate a score, and I'll show it to you very soon. But this score is also part of the impact of the risk score. So if this asset is compromised because of its permissions, it can do a lot of damage or a lot or very few damage to the cloud environment. So the risk score will be adjusted accordingly. So now if we open, for example, here I have an EC2 instance that is the riskiest asset in my environment. I can see the overview screen. So this overview screen is also another screen that is being worked on as we speak, that will be available for all assets. And the idea here is to provide this 360 view of everything that the system knows about the assets. So it's a work in progress, but this is a direction we're taking. So we can see here the risk score. And when I hover over the risk, I can see why the risk is what it is. We see we have critical severity vulnerabilities. We have an asset that is of high importance. It's public. So this is why the risk score is what it is. In this one, I don't have any misconfiguration. So maybe let's go back. Let's see if I have something different to show you or not. And then I'll move on to the business priority to show you a little bit how it's defined. Yeah, so we have here, as you can see, we have some S3 buckets with misconfigurations. So yeah, so we can see here what are the top misconfigurations that should be remediated. We can see the distribution of critical and high misconfiguration. I can click on this to be redirected to the findings that are only risk management, as you can see, to address the different things that I need to do on this S3 bucket. So the last thing that I wanted to show is the business priority. Really? Okay. Apologize about this. It's always, I mean, live demos are not real if no issue happens. Okay. So here we can see how business priority rules can be defined. So we're not talking about rules in the sense of GSL rules, of compliance rules. Really, the word rules here is simple English word, and not more than that. So we can create as many rules as we want. We can give it a name. So if I want to define my crown jewels, I can go ahead and define it here. So I have several options. I can, for example, say that all the assets that are part of my production environment are crown jewels. That's an option. I can also say that the assets that are part of this environment, yes, are crown jewels, but not all of them. So I could be using, for example, assets that have a specific tag. If they have, for example, an owner, then they are crown jewels. It could be name, terminology conventions that I have. It can be a combination of all of those. So it's up to me to decide, and then I can select the business priority that I want to attribute to those assets. And this way, I define the business priority for a group of assets. It's not about going asset and deciding there. It's really about creating groups that have something in common, and giving them a business priority. So that's pretty much it for the risk management. Do we have questions, Shai?
You can move forward, and we'll do the questions at the end. Okay.
So, okay, I'm going to have to reload things. So the second feature that I wanted to present tonight is the CIEM, Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management. So if you remember what I explained in the beginning during the slides, so the very first part of CIEM is about visibility, right? So we want to provide the customer with visibility into cloud entitlements. We want to facilitate auditing, for example. So if it is for auditing purpose, if it is just because you're doing an investigation of something that happened, and you want and this is important information. So we added this tab called permissions. So right now I'm looking at the AWS CIEM role. I'm not sure why it's bugging a little bit, but let's see. Let's go back to this from here. Yeah, it's better. So, I'm going to use the same entity. So I have a list here of all the asset types that are supported by CIEM. And I can see that here I'm within an IAM role. And I can see under this tab permission, I can see a map. I hope you're seeing it well, because the arrows are not very visible on my screen here. Contrast is not great, but there are arrows between those different nodes. So what we see here is an IAM role. It is connected to one identity-based policy. It has one policy attached. It's a policy that is customer managed. We can see that this policy has an IAM sensitivity of 50. So IAM sensitivity, if you remember what I explained before, it's the potential damage that the IAM permissions can do to the cloud environment. So here we're in the middle, from 1 to 100, so somewhere in the middle. And we can see that from this policy, I have, sorry, the policy is giving permissions to 4 categories of services. So we have services of compute, of database, management and governance, networking and content delivery. Those are categories that are defined by Amazon, not our own categories. And I can expand those categories to see that, for example, in here, I actually give some permissions on the EC2 service. So if I click here, I can see on the right pane what exactly I can do on EC2. So here I can do the action describe on all EC2 resources. If I'm looking here at the RDS, I can see where it appears in the policy and understand easily what can be done in this database. We can potentially see here resources. If resources are explicitly defined in the policy, then we could see them as well. Instead of service, it would say that it's a resource, basically. I don't have an example in here. So this is a nice map, but as I said, there's just one policy attached. So I could log into the AWS console. I could find this policy. I could understand pretty easily what it grants. Where things get a little more interesting is, oops, okay. For example, when we move on to, that's gonna give me, I'm gonna go back to this and search again. So if, for example, I have a role like this one, so I have a role and it has now not just one policy, but three. There's an identity-based policy that is AWS managed. I have another one that is customer managed and another one, but I can see here this little icon here. This policy is actually not attached to this role. It's attached to another role, a role B. But there is a trust relationship that exists between role A and role B. And because of that trust relationship, role A can actually grant the permissions that role B can grant. So this is called role chaining. And this is something that is very important because CloudGuard is able to find those policies, to add them to the effective permissions that I'll show you in a minute. And this is going to go over just one level of trust. If there is really a chain, if there are several roles that can assume other role, all other roles will also present that. So here again, same thing. We can see the services that are contained within those policies. But as I said, now things are getting more complex, right? We have three policies. We need to understand how they work. They're all identity-based, so it's actually still easy, but it could be an organization SCP, it could be permission boundary. So we have this little button here called Consolidated Policy that allows you to actually consolidate the three policies, make the calculation of what are the permissions that are effectively granted, and present them in a table way. So this is not an actual policy, right? This is an artificial policy that we built so that permissions are more legible. You can understand here per service what exactly can be done, what is allowed, what is denied. Here we don't have denies, but we could see denies as well. What are the actions and on which resources? So with this, it is now very, very straightforward to understand what are the effective permissions of a cloud asset. So now moving on to another screen. So I want to show you, right now on the CIEM overview. So this is again my dashboard for CIEM. I can see here that I have, for example, some users and roles that are inactive. This is some sort of again attack surface that you want to reduce, right? If you have things that are not in use, then they need to be deleted, deactivated. So this is something that you should take care of. The overprivileged entities, I'll get back to this in a second. And you can see here some information about CIEM findings. So CIEM findings, just a word on that. We put in this page all the findings that are connected to the topic of CIEM. So if you have, for example, a team member that is specifically working with everything that's related to IAM, then this is a great place to start because every finding of the system may come from intelligence, from compliance, or CIEM itself, if it's overprivileged entities, everything is presented in the screen. Everything is concentrated here, and we can see, for example, group here by labels, so we can understand the type of issues we're dealing with. Okay, so we have things, for example, for privilege escalation, things that are connected to inactive entities, etc., etc. So if I go back to this, I can start from this, I can start from findings. I can see here that I have some severely overprivileged entities. So I have Lambda functions and I have IAM roles. So I'm going to look at the IAM roles and I'll say a word on the Lambda functions at the end. So I have 26 IAM roles that are highly or critically overprivileged. So let me take the first one, for example. So just to backtrack a little, if you remember what I explained in the beginning, we have on one hand the effective permissions. We saw it in the map, right? We know what is the effective policy of the role. On the other hand, we have intelligence that tells us what are the activities performed, what are the actions performed using this role. So we can compare the two and deduce when there are permissions that are excessive, right? So here we can see that this is the case. We found that this role is overprivileged. It has permissions that it's not using. The severity is critical. The severity is dynamic. It depends on the redundant permissions, those excessive permissions. So what we look at here is we have this list of permissions that are excessive with the original permission and what we suggest to do with it. We calculate the IAM sensitivity of those permissions. So again, connecting back to what we saw before, this IAM sensitivity score. And depending on this sensitivity, we're going to be able to give a severity to the finding. So if, for example, you grant excessive permissions, but really their sensitivity is low, it doesn't have such an impact on your cloud environment, then the finding will most likely be in low severity. Here, the critical severity indicates that the excessive permissions are sensitive. We can see here how to remediate the role. So you can either take this policy and create a new policy for the role. So this is if you choose the consolidated policy, or you can go for each policy and see how it should be corrected independently. So now if we, one last thing that I wanted to explain. We can see here the analysis period. The analysis period is the time for which we looked at the logs, at the activity logs. We're going to add very soon the number of days because doing the math here can be a bit challenging. But basically, it helps you understand. For example, let's say that we looked at 45 days and you have a company policy that is 60 days. So you would be able to see this from here. So if I open this role, just to go back to my permission map, to my entitlement map, so I can see all those policies, right? I can see that each policy, and here in this example, everything is over permissive, but those policies are only in medium severity because the excessive permissions they're granting are less sensitive. Those are actually critical. And you can see that within each policy, I can see the original, I can see, the suggestion. I can see how to remediate it. So if you were auditing, you're not looking at the finding, whatever way you get to this map, in case there is a problem of over permission, you will see it from the map as well. If there is no problem, you'll see the status valid that we saw in the beginning. So that's pretty much it. Here we can see I was mentioning specific resources. So here, for example, this policy gives access to compute, and here to specific resource for the action create tags. So that's it for CIEM. Now we can move on to questions, Shai.
Yeah, sure. So many questions from Andre. Could CIEM identify unused roles that
Yes.
are not used for the last several days, for example?
Yes. So we saw it actually in the dashboard.
Okay.
We have it here.
Do you have plans for multi-cloud support for the ERM?
For the ERM, we already have multi-cloud support. I didn't show you the entities per type, but we already support those assets. So there is already multi-cloud support. We don't have the same level of support for each asset type, but it's definitely something we're doing from the start, supporting multi-cloud.
Okay. Are there any auto remediation actions that can be configured?
So right now on the misconfigurations, you can use the cloud bots that are already available. So this is already provided. I believe that for the vulnerabilities, we don't have right now automated remediation. But this is a very important topic for us. So we're working with our customers, our EA partners, etc., to determine exactly how they want the remediation to happen, and we have a lot of plans around this.
Okay. Does all CloudGuard assets type have a risk code and included in the scope of the ERM?
No, you have the answer on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, also there we're growing the coverage, obviously, but we started with what we felt was the most important.
Can you tell how long does it take to update the CIEM data in the portal once the new AWS permission policy is installed?
I think I'm not 100% sure. I think it's up to an hour. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's about that order.
And are there any limitation of this new feature related to the retention of data?
No, because we look at up to 90 days of information. And wait. Retention of data. You mean for intelligence? That's the.
I'm not sure. We didn't wrote.
Yeah, I see. So yes. So if we have logs for the past 3 months, then we'll be able to go up to 90 days of information. And if it's up to 1 month, then yes, we'll have only logs for 1 month. So yes, it is connected to the retention, I guess, if the question is about intelligence logs.
Another question, does for the CIEM, are queries elements included in the GSL?
Not yet, but being able to query entitlement is also one of the major features we want to support in CIEM. So part of our roadmap right now.
But I didn't see if you mentioned it or not, but CIEM supported the Kubernetes, the
Not
K8.
yet. Not yet. These are the asset types that are supported in CIEM. By the way, something I forgot to say when I was presenting in the beginning, but CIEM and ERM are, I said it for AWP, but not for the rest. They're also part of the CSPM offering, right? There's nothing to add. It's already part of the offering. Yes, what I didn't say, by the way, is about the Lambda functions.
Mm-hmm.
If we go back to the overview, we had some overprivileged Lambda functions. So I don't want to explain now our serverless feature in CloudGuard, but overprivileged Lambda functions is not done in the same way that we spot overprivileged IAM roles. This comes from our serverless feature. We're able to do this by analyzing the code of the Lambda. We don't actually need to look at the activity performed by the Lambda function, but this looks the same, right? So this is something that was already available for our serverless feature.
And okay, what reporting capabilities are available for the risk data?
So right now, besides exporting the dashboard that should be available soon, and the protected assets, that's pretty much it. But we're working on this. It's a request that has come several times. So this is part also of the highly prioritized features for ERM.
Let's see. Does the CIEM integrated somehow with the ISC scanning, detect, prevent configuration?
Not today. We need to understand better the use cases there, because in CIEM we look at the activities, so it's not just a matter of configuration.
Okay, thank you, Abby. I think you answered most of the questions, and
Sure.
we'll take all of them and we will paste it with the answers on the community, on the post. So Abby, thank you very much. Benny,
Sure.
also thank you, and
Thank you all for joining.
yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.